My name is Christopher. The student ID is 20607070. This is the final presentation for the eAsia 202R for spring 2020. I'm sorry that I don't have a webcam available, so I will use the slide instead. My topic today is purchase. Purchase is a verb, which means acquire something by paying for it, or simply word buy. We got example here. Mr. Gill spotted a manuscript at a local auction and purchased for £1,500. As the example we mentioned on last slide, Mr. Gill purchased a manuscript. This is a manuscript. But let's think about what else we can purchase. Before I move on to our main topic, let's watch a video together.
我来给你介绍，这位是我们行政院李院长。
那神经病啊！什么神经院？
不是神经院，是行政院。我们的行政院就等于你们的国务院。
什么？行政院就是国务院，一国两院啊？搞咩嚟嘅？
我代表台湾执政党的，来这儿看看你们有什么要求。
这要求可多了。第一，压制台独，别让它开风气，否则香港、澳门、西藏、东北商场都要独立，这个可不行。
这个要求不能接受。
什么？你们不怕解放军兵临城下？
你这个是干涉别国的内政。
台湾是中国领土一部分嘛？
台湾是由台湾的中国人管制。
你这是台独！
你乱来一个你！
好，我用长筒飞弹打你！
我用爱国者飞弹打你的长筒飞弹。
哈，你有爱国者飞弹吗？
我有钱可以买。
我用米格29炸你爱国者。
我用 F16打你的米格。
F16又是买的？
对，我们还买了大黄蜂、飞毛腿、M1 坦克。
胡亂嚟啊，死人啊！
怕咩啊？我哋有解放軍，戰無不勝。
我们也有解放軍，
真的嗎？
我们也买了。
解放軍你也買了？
好说是水货。
This movie was shot by Fred Chan back into the earlier 1990s. The movie Her Fatal Ways is a series of 4 movies together, and this is the 3rd one in that series. The background of this movie is back in the 1990s, before Hong Kong is handing over back to China, like all the Hong Kongers are afraid what happened after 1997. In the clip we just watched, while the main character Shennan, the girl, who was arguing with the officials of the Taiwanese government, the Taiwanese government says that they purchase everything. But today, let's change the character. Let's talk about what did Chinese government purchased. First, let's say United Nations. Probably people are going to ask why. China is one of the countries that funded the United Nations back into the 1940s. Then how did they purchase it? When we talk about the relationship between the mainland China and the United Nations, we should mention one country, Albania. First, let's go back to the early period of the People's Republic of China, which was founded in 1949. It's the November the 23rd that the Chinese government first established a diplomatic relationship with the government of Albania. A note shows that the Albania government and the Chinese government has since 1954 to provide Albania with economic and military aid. The document also shows that between the year of 1954 and 1978, the Chinese government paid more than 10 million yuan to the Albania government as a kind of financial aid. The Chinese government also sent nearly 6,000 Chinese experts to Albania over the year on aid projects. During the same period of time, the Chinese government also provided 1.8 million tons of food grains and over 1 million tons of steel products to the government of Albania. As we know, while in the 1960s and 1970s, China is still a country which don't have enough food supplies and steel products. Still, over the same period of time, China supplied Albania with more than 10,000 tractors. While the mechanization level of Chinese agriculture is still quite low, and at the time they are still relying on manpower and animals. Once again, in the same period of time, the Chinese government built 6 power stations in Albania. Of course, China doesn't have enough power generation capacity by itself, but it still helped Albania to build more than self-sufficient electricity supplies. In total, China provided more than 300,000 tons of economic and military aid supplies to Albania during that period. After more than 10 years of sending economic and military aid to Albania, finally, China gets something back. On July 15, 1971, 17 UN members, led by Albania, requested that the question of the restoration of the lawful rights of the People's Republic of China in the United Nations be placed on the agenda of the 26th sessions of the UN General Assembly. And on October 25, 1971, during the 1976 meeting, the United Nations General Assembly approved the Resolution 2758 about the restoration of the right of the People's Republic of China in the United Nations. That recalls some stories I hear when I was back in China. I heard my history teacher says China actually purchased their status in the United Nations from the African countries. Although these happened 50 years ago, let's look at something that happened recently. There is a new term called debt-trapped diplomacy. The term was created by an economist to describe Chinese provide supplies to the poor countries overwhelmed by the unsustainable loans would be forced the cold control of the strategic assets to Beijing. At first to be used in 2017, and the term has quickly spread through the media and Western governments. It has since expanded to include other parts of the world, and would further defined as expanded upon the context of Chinese geostrategies interest in a 2017. In a 2018 Harvard University report, we have assumption here. China purchased Africa. Is that correct? I shouldn't say that's totally correct, but let's see an example that mentioned in the report from Harvard University in 2018. The country in between Africa and Asia, Sri Lanka. Beijing has offered nearly 15 billion in loans, including more than 1 billion to develop a major port in Sri Lanka's president's hometown of Hambantota. The ports provide wholly unprofitable, and with the Sri Lanka step to China exceeding $8 billion, its government cased control of the port to China in a debt for equity swap. In July 29th, 2017, the SLPA, Sri Lanka Port Authority, and the China Merchant Port Holdings signed agreement on the port to lease the port to China Merchant Port Holdings for 99 years. That sounds familiar, right? Let's get back to the video we just watched. Why Hong Kong is giving back to China? Because the British government signed agreement with the Chinese government, saying they leased Hong Kong for 99 years. That's how things happened. And now it happens to Sri Lanka. The Chinese government signed agreement with Sri Lanka, says we lease your port for 99 years. But here is one thing that makes this agreement looks more equal. In the agreement, it states the deal is going to give the Sri Lanka government about $1.4 million. But guess what? The government of Sri Lanka is going to use this $1.4 billion to pay off the debt to China. Then what does it mean? It means the Sri Lanka government leased the port free to the Chinese government for 99 years. That sounds crazy, right? That's just one of the few examples that China purchased Africa. Nowadays, in the background of the trade war between the United States and China, we can't think more about what China is going to purchase next. I can understand that it's quite common if you can't pay the debt, then you use other method to pay it. But the issue here is 99 years. It's quite a long time. What China is going to do after 99 years, we don't know yet. I hope it's not going to be as complicated as Hong Kong is in the future. And I hope the Chinese government is going to provide African countries for more affordable loans in the future. Not like this one.